Parents parents are stressed. Let's face it, and let's just be honest. Do you feel overwhelmed? Do you feel like, things are just on top of you, especially during this pandemic? It's just too much, And if you are feeling a little bit overwhelmed and a little bit stressed, you're going to enjoy this live, because in this live, I'm going to talk about 4 powerful, proven strategies to release that parenting stress. Okay. Now, who am I? I am Usha Chudasama. I am the author of this book. Can you see that? Oh, too much. Your Happy Child. I am a family well-being and mental health expert. And what do? I actually coach parents to learn how to learn the art and science. Actually, I help them to learn the art and science of parenting, so that they learn to heal their own inner child through the experience of parenthood and adulthood, so that they're in a better position. They're actually in a conscious position to raise happy children. So these children are confident, resilient, and independent, and they fulfill their potential. That is my aim. In today's talk, though, I'm talking about 4 strategies, proven strategies that will help you to reduce your stress. Now, we know that stress is actually a natural response to external pressure, and it disrupts our balance. Don't we? We know that, right? But did you know that stress actually has a mind and body connection, and it can affect every area of your life? So what is stress? Stress is like it's a normal reaction to outside stimulus that everyone experiences. At the moment, it's the pandemic. In small doses, actually, stress focuses us to do well in tests, or, do well in interviews, for example. But when the stress gets too much and it builds up, it affects us physically and emotionally in every area of our life. Now, if we're asked to do more than our body's capable of doing, we feel stressed. And let's agree that during this pandemic, we've got loads of stressors at the moment in our lives, right? And I'm going to talk about them in a minute. So the adrenaline and the cortisol that gets pumped in our body when we are stressed can affect us physically, and it affects our immunity. And when things affect our immunity, it makes us more tired, and then it takes us longer to bounce back. So once we know how to deal with stress, we can, especially during these times of crisis, we are looking after ourselves. Now, recently I've been hearing a lot of stories from anxious parents who are obviously feeling this coronavirus stress and parent stress, and it's all over Facebook. Now, special parenting groups have, even established themselves specifically to deal with parents at this time. Now, here are 3 examples from stressed out mums from a Facebook group, and this is what they wrote. First one: big sympathy, as it's so tough on parents who are both working and have childcare or homeschooling, etc., to juggle. Second one: I have got to a point where I've just had enough trying to work from home in a new role. Hubby's working from home full time. I'm literally the wife, the cleaner, the teacher, the mum, the dog mum. And I feel like I'm going to blow. I'm just so tired. A whole day off. No kids, no husband, no work, and no housework. Just me, copious amounts of tea and biscuits, and Netflix. That's all I want for one day. Now you can really hear the stress in that parent's narrative. And the third one is definitely hard with kids. I have also got an 8-year-old who thinks that he's 28 and tries to rule the roost. I wish my husband would do something in order to have a whole day on this instead of being on his PS4, but alas, he doesn't. I'm running myself ragged from some days 4 a.m., depending on when the 5-year-old wakes up, doing literally everything, including working on setting up my business and my orders. So you might be in that similar position where you're doing everything even though people are around you and they're not helping. So these posts actually triggered countless other stories of stressed parents who are spinning so many plates with no real work-life balance, and they're struggling with their parenting. Now, some mums are also small business owners trying to earn a living as well as care for their families. So I'm sure that you can relate. Or somebody else that might be going through something similar. The World Health Organization emphasizes that actually too much stress affects our immune system, as I've said just now. And it therefore makes us too weak to fight the coronavirus or anything else that we might be going through. So, preventative care is crucial. And it's crucial to improve the overall well-being as it will impact the well-being of the whole family. Now you may have heard the cliche, that when you're in a plane, you've got to put the oxygen mask on yourself first before before you can help somebody else when there's turbulence. So you must do that. You must do that for yourself. And in the same way, I mean, my argument is that the oxygen mask should be for you to gain skills in parenting as soon as you notice a change in your children's behavior, because children actually pick up on the energy of stress before anyone else does, before we sometimes do ourselves. So, and that change in behavior is a kind of an indication. Now, if children are happy and content, you'll find that the whole atmosphere in your house will be so much more harmonious, because if they're happy, you can get on with your things, right? You can get on with cooking and cleaning without them moaning or bickering or fighting or whatever else. So, here are some strategies to maintain your mental health and well-being of your family during this pandemic. So, strategy 1 is to recognize your stress. So the first step is always to be aware and recognize when your children are feeling stressed. Otherwise, if you don't, if you're not aware of your stress, it actually puts you in denial and it affects how you manage your stress. So think about these things. Have you, do you recognize any of these effects in your life? So have you been feeling sad, confused, irritable, angry? For some people, having suicidal thoughts. I mean, the parent I mentioned earlier, she just wanted a day where she just had tea and biscuits and Netflix. That isn't suicidal thoughts. That's just actually wanting to withdraw. But suicidal thoughts are when, stress has got so much, it's just got overwhelming that you just don't want to be alive. Okay. And that is a definite sign. Okay. So another thing is, have you found yourself being unable to concentrate properly, or you've been less efficient or productive? These are signs of stress. Do you sometimes feel like socially withdrawing, like that parent I mentioned, and isolating yourself, and it's not because of social distancing, you just want a break? Signs of stress. Do you find yourself having body pain or tension, like headaches or painful muscles? Signs of stress. And I know that I had lots of painful joint pain. That was signs of stress. And so I followed some of the advice I'm giving you today. Another thing is, do you find yourself being tired, less energy, or feeling weak and fatigued? A lot more than usual. Signs of stress. And, has your sleep been affected? Do you have insomnia, or are you starting to have nightmares? Again, all of these are signs of stress. If you are having these symptoms, do something about it, please. Because you'd be surprised how many people have these symptoms, but they carry on regardless. They think that, well, everybody else is going through this, so it's just a case of getting on with it. I would beg to differ on that, because it is so easy to become complacent, even if you do notice the symptoms, and it's tempting to think that you can brush them under the carpet and just carry on with your daily activities regardless, like being a mum to your children, running a business. And the danger here is that, you could miss that crucial moment to do something about it before the stress becomes too overwhelming. When your children start to show behavior problems, like being angry, like rude, they're slamming doors. And also, you might notice that you're starting to make mistakes in your work, or you're starting to become irritable. I mean, look at it this way: if you saw a red light on your car dashboard telling you that you need to change your oil, would you ignore that? Well, all these symptoms that I've just mentioned are the red lights. So, it's about getting help. So, as in the stories, it's a bit like getting irritated and frustrated with your husband for leaving you to deal with the home, the kids, the chores, but ignoring your frustration instead of perhaps saying something to your husband or your kids and getting them involved and maybe changing your mindset about the whole situation. Then, as irritation bubbles under the surface, something else happens in the day, and you hear the news, and the kids might do something quite minor, like maybe dropping food on the floor, and that frustration just quickly turns to anger. And before you know it, your reactions become overwhelming, and they become inappropriate and loud, and you become shouty. And then your kid starts to get irritated, and they start getting scared, maybe from your behavior, and that, of course, in turn makes their behavior too hard to handle. And then it starts another vicious cycle. So, if you implement these strategies when you first notice the above signs, then you're likely to reduce stress for yourself and the whole family. Okay, so that was number one. Strategy one was recognize your stress. Number two is you acknowledge your stress. And by acknowledging your stress here, I mean is that on the one hand, you know it's difficult to live in the unknown, because the updates about COVID are just being drip fed to us by the government. So it's hard to know what to do and form a daily habit. But on the other hand, there's still the uncertainty or surrounding the virus, and we start to get anxious. But one thing to remember is to focus on the things that you can control. Don't, rather than focusing on the things you can't control, things happening in the world. So a key difference between stress and anxiety, okay, is that we falsely believe that we have some control when we overthink things and we start worrying, and that's the difference. So there's a lot of conspiracy theories out there, and they might not help with stress management, but it's important to keep us updated. So when you are watching the news, use reputable sources, and let go of the temptation that you can control what you can't actually. So number three is know your limits. Now, as you start recognizing the signs of stress in your body, you can actually benefit from changing your mindset. So creating new habits, and keep checking in with your emotions, and in order to avoid overlooking your stress and brushing it under the carpet. I know I've done it many times, because there's always something that you can do. So one thing you can do is set a timer. Reduce the amount of news that you're watching. Spend a little bit of time to discuss this with others in your life. Maybe make a decision about what is a priority in your life right now. The world is forced to be indoors, and even now, although things are starting to open up a little bit, we are still hearing stories about the second wave, because people have gone out and they've started to mingle with each other, and the virus has flared up again. So we are forced to be indoors, and think about how important is it to clean the house. Housework is important, of course, cleaning is important, but is it possible to rotate which rooms you clean on a weekly basis? Is it possible that, because at the moment both parents are working at home, is it possible to share that responsibility of cooking or cleaning or tidying up? Maybe make up a rota. Get the children involved with chores, if they're old enough, of course. And the parent story that I mentioned earlier, she had a new role, so obviously her learning curve for that is going to be steep. let alone all of the other stresses that she had. So, it all brings us up to strategy to number 4. Strategy 4 is to make time for self-care. So self-care doesn't mean that it needs to be done in isolation. I mean, self-care, people think about spas and, swimming and going away and doing things on your own. It's actually an active process, and it comprises of skills that you use to get your needs met. um, you do have to invest in your general wellness. I think it's not selfish. Some parents think that it's selfish to do things for themselves. It isn't selfish. It's you putting the oxygen mask on yourself, and it's actually an act of self-love. So when you look after yourself, you're modeling this behavior to your children. Remember that. Okay, self care is about eating good, nutritious food. It's about staying active, exercising, but also getting enough rest and, gaining these kind of skills to manage your children's behavior is also an important thing about gaining parenting skills. So these skills then become your coping mechanisms that you use to moderate your own stress. And it's a bit like turning the volume down on a remote control. So when you start to hear the noise and chaos of your life and it becomes too loud, you can use your coping mechanisms, you can use your stress coping strategies to moderate and turn it down. You could expand your repertoire of nutritious foods by using less processed foods, or opting for organic foods, or using different exercises, for example yoga and meditation. I know that there's a lot of free content on YouTube that I found. So even having short naps in the day, 10 minutes here, 15 minutes there, maybe lying down when your child lies down, learning a new skill also to develop an existing skill. um, it helps to increase those coping mechanisms that you can use from your toolbox. um, because I know it's easy for me to say all of this, but I have done all of those things that I've mentioned because I have felt stress. But doing small amounts of things during the day actually helps to reduce that pressure. Like in a cooker, a pressure cooker, you let go of some of the pressure. It helps to reduce that stress. Change your mindset and focus on things that you can do. Remember that, and not what you can't do. Shifting your mindset like that is also a coping mechanism to moderate your stress levels, because, like I said, it eases the pressure. So I know I've mentioned a couple of times that parenting is an important issue, and I actually think, when I've okay, put it this way, when I've taught parents how to do the parenting skills, they find that the whole house is harmonious. They are able to work better. Their children are eating, sleeping, doing their routines. Everything is working to a schedule, and therefore, parents have told me that their time management is improved because everyone's just doing what they're meant to do. And, you know, remember that, these children are going to be our future leaders in the community. And that's why I'm so dedicated to, coaching and supporting as many parents as I can to nurture and raise happy children. Happy children. I often run workshops and one-to-one sessions covering these techniques, but during this time of lockdown, I've created an online program. So actually, I can share my knowledge with more people. And I want to make my work accessible across the world and support as many families as I can. So, have you ever taken an online class? Because I love them, because I can do them at my own pace. I can rewind parts and rewatch those things that I really want to soak into, and the ones that appeal to me, and it becomes a visual, auditory, and a kinesthetic experience. So if you are experiencing stress and you want some practical strategies to overcome that and become a lot calmer and bring order to your home, then please look at my online course, and I'll put a link in the comments. I'd love to welcome you into my private community, and to further support you, and to give, with whatever challenges that you might be facing, because with an experienced guiding hand like mine, you can get through anything. That is my experience, and that is my feedback from the parents who've worked with me. So, just to reiterate, the 4 strategies to help with parent stress is: one, recognize your stress, acknowledge your stress, know your limits, and make time for self care. So, thank you so much for listening and being with me today. Remember, look in the comments and let me know what kind of stresses you are going through, and any questions, and see if I can help you to overcome those. It's Usha Chudasama, family well-being and mental health expert, saying bye for now.